Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast, episode 50. This is a very, very special episode to me because in this episode, I talk with my very dear friend, Eric Charles Jorgenson. Now, you've probably heard Eric's name mentioned several times throughout this podcast and wondered, who's Eric? Well, Eric is someone I met at Playhouse West, and he is also the friend who took me in when I had my major leg injury over 2 years ago. I'll never forget calling him and him just saying, hey, come over. I got an extra bed in the living room, which actually used to be in this spot right here. Just come over. We'll figure it out. COVID lockdowns were at an all-time high. We didn't know what was going on in the world, and he helped myself and my family out more than anyone will ever know. And for that, I am forever grateful to him. And I also have to show gratitude to another Eric who is behind the camera, Eric Sarich, because him and I connected here in the last couple months, and he has been able to take this production of the podcast to a whole other level. He does the audio production, he does the film production. He's extremely professional, amazingly creative, and I couldn't be happier with the product that we're going to be able to put out moving forward. So thank you to Eric and Eric. And the book of the episode is going to Be Here Now by Ram Dass. I might have made this book of the episode before, but we're doing it again because this book was so pivotal for Eric Charles Jorgenson and I during the time of my injury. We're both very spiritual. We meditated, we read books, we watched good films and movies and just talk life. And this book led us to so many other books that I'm so grateful that we got to share and read together. And if you haven't done so yet, be sure, if you listen to the podcast, go follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you want to watch it, go to youtube.com/@thesamdeverpodcast. We got a brand new YouTube channel up. Go subscribe there to check out all the latest content. And without further ado, here's my conversation with Eric. Eric Charles Jorgenson.
There I am.
Welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast.
Thank you.
It's we're here. We're finally here.
Yes,
we're
we
doing
are.
it. It's happening. Your name has been mentioned in multiple episodes.
Oh.
And people are about to find out why. And as I was telling you, it's interesting because we're actually in the exact spot.
Yes. Yes.
Where I laid in bed for about 6 months in your old apartment, which is now my apartment.
Which is now yours. That was definitely another time. Very surreal. At that.
Shoot, it's been in 2 years. Oh my! No, what's
how's it going? 2 years. How's the foot?
It's good. It's a miracle, really, to be at this point where I don't need a foot brace. I can do a lot of the same stuff I used to do before the injury. But just, it's crazy how that one accident just threw me into this entirely different life. It's a lot of my same life, but it's different at the same time, but in a beautiful way. And
well, in the podcast with Grayson, you were talking about that experience on the trail and how that split second, changed your life. Yeah. And Grayson's, which he talked about, this appendix bursting. It's do you have insight as to what causes? Well, I don't mean what causes it, but obviously it's for as we've talked countless times. Yeah. That it's like the universe or God, as ever you're understanding God, is saying, okay, you're going to pause. Yeah. What do you think was going on that made the necessity to pause, or is it for something that was to benefit you from?
That's a great question.
It's happened to me on occasion.
I think
not to the level that's.
You're the first person to ask that much in depth. Really, when I think back at it, I think I was really surface level on a lot of things. Meaning, I don't know if it was ego. I don't know if it wasn't malicious. Like I didn't have like malicious plans of taking over the world or anything. Yes. But things that I thought were, I got to do this and I got to do that. I got to
Yeah.
become this and I got to become that. And even on that trail I used to run on, I would run listening to music, and there's nothing wrong with it, but I think this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to, the podcast is going to be at this level,
yes.
and I'm going to have a studio, and I'm going to do this. And then just 1, 2, boom.
Yeah.
Instantly, I knew my life had, like,
And
instantly I knew my life changed.
You were
Instantly.
wearing sweatpants, and you saw from the knee down go
Yeah.
to the further left? Or?
Yes. Protrude out. So I thought I broke my femur, which I didn't. But yeah, so for what most people don't know, I went to Burbank Hospital from there.
St. Joseph's.
St. Joseph's,
Yeah.
shout out to them, obviously.
Yeah.
Great, amazing people there. I call my parents. I might have called my sales manager at the time just to let them know I'm not going to be at work tomorrow. And then I called you.
Yeah, I remember.
I called you. Now take us from when you got that phone call, from your perspective.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, actually, another person that your last episode with Nick Osborne, he and I were watching, I think we were watching Godfather 2.
Great movie.
It was during the pandemic, so we were watching movies. And, there was such a small, limited amount of people that we were, because this pandemic, it was like, okay, everyone you had a smaller circle of friends, and Nick was one of them, as were yourself. And gosh, I think even for a while back then, it was so isolating, that experience. But anyway, so Nick and I would get together and do self tapes and watch a movie or something. And I remember the phone ringing, and it was from you. I was like, "What's up?" And I heard it in your voice, and you were laughing. I think out of embarrassment. You were on tons of morphine.
Lots
probably.
of morphine.
Yeah, by then. So I was like, "Hey, what's up?" Well, I really did it this time. And I was, well, what's going on? And you went into the extent of, where you were and what happened. And Nick was sitting there watching the whole conversation. And, I remember, it's okay for me to share in detail.
If
okay,
there's
well,
anyone that we were going to talk about this, it's going to be this.
Oh, okay.
Podcast
Oh, all right.
right here.
Okay, good. Well, the emotion in your voice was very telling, that it was like, oh, this is very, very serious. My friend is gravely injured. And, I think there was a few phone calls then that was going on, and first it was just like, well, can you come pick me up?
Oh, that's right.
we thought you were.
I thought it was going to get released that night.
Yes, because they popped it back in.
Forgot all about it.
Yes, you hadn't been admitted yet. You were in the emergency room. And so it was like, well, of course. And then Nick and I got in the car and we drove out to St. Joseph's. And I remember we were in the parking lot. And of course, it is absolutely a ghost town, no one was there. We couldn't go into the lobby even at that time. And so you then put us back on the phone, and I guess it was a matter they hadn't popped it back in yet, the knee.
Yeah.
But then you were pretty out of it by then. So we talked to a nurse, I think that it was, and then they said that they were going to keep you overnight. And the weight of, oh God, this is not good. This is. And I knew that you lived, by yourself in that studio, and probably, I can't remember when the decision was made, either that night or the next, but that when you would get discharged, you were going to need some assistance, and pretty full time. Yeah. So I remember it was Mike and Julian and Nick and myself, and we're all like on conference calls, going, okay, he's not going to be able to do anything by himself, so we were trying to, at first, it was a relatively short, decision process. I think I spoke with your brother maybe. I don't think I had talked to your parents by then yet, because we hadn't, but we were formulating this and realizing that it was going to be impossible with just how things were for each of us to take shifts going to your house. Mm-hmm. And we had already had this bed set up here in the living room.
Which I helped set up.
Which you had helped set up, yeah, coincidentally. And I had just left it up because, there was lockdown. And it was like, and over the summer months, August of 2020, it was just cooler sleeping out here, because of the air conditioning units, in the living room. And it was just so obvious what was needed to be done, And I remember the three of us were discussing, 3 or 4 of us, different phone calls and stuff. That was like, okay, it's going to be the easiest if you're here recovering, as far as really getting the care that you were going to need, not having any idea what that care was going to look like. So I remember telling you that on the phone, and you were resistant to it at first, but you were so emotional. When we said, yeah, you're going to be taken care of. We're setting it up. We're not sure exactly the arrangement. We're either going to be stopping in. Someone's either going to be staying with you. And in talking with the nurse and realizing, it was another day or two, then it was obvious, like, oh no, you're going to need to be here because the amount of, attention to your leg, it's just, so that just became, it was just obvious, and, I wasn't doing anything. I was just sitting in the apartment by myself during that time, so it was like, all right. And I had experience caretaking with my father and my mother, because my mother had COVID March of 2020 and survived. We can get later about Dad. They probably don't know. My dad had passed in 2015, and we had him on home hospice. So it was just natural. It was just like, yeah, it was God. It was God saying, this is what needs to happen. There's something that you're both going to learn from each other, as a result of this. And I was almost afraid of what would happen if I didn't do it. Because it was such a scenario that it was just like, yeah, it's right here in front of you, and so I was glad that you had accepted, because first of all, it was easier than driving to your place in Van Nuys, every day. But I would then say that, so once we got around that decision and I was getting things set up and we were, multiple phone calls and stuff, and your parents, by then I, was talking to them on the phone and they were very concerned, and I was, reassuring them. I was like, yeah, I've got experience, I could even, Dad was in bed and I learned how to change sheets while somebody was still laying in the bed, at that level, which we didn't need, for you, fortunately. But then I think the reality that hit was when they determined that there was no way we could get you home other than back here, other than by ambulance. And, the ambulance coming in to the driveway, and, they're pulling you out on the stretcher and having to take the stairs, that was going to, that challenge. And they got you up here and they put you in, and, we're all good to go. And, then they left, and everyone's all masked up and gloved up and everything. And, the door closes and there you are. And there's a very short, like, maybe 4 sentences. I was thinking I was going to have, all these papers and everything of aftercare instructions and what to do with the knee and everything. And there wasn't anything. I was like, and at the time, normally there would have been, someone in discharge. I would have been, since I wasn't allowed to go to the hospital, there wasn't any nurse or anyone there, to talk about, well, what do we do with this now that you're home? And I think that's when I started getting an inclination of what this purpose was, when I was needing to learn or fulfill in life. And that was learning how to, I think Charlie was saying on his podcast about fear versus courage. And, when life hands you something that you've got to let go of, you have to let go of the idea that I'm going to have the answers. And you have to accept that, all right, you know what? I don't know what I'm going to do here, but I will find out. The answer is going to reveal itself. It's just 1 minute at a time, and the leg, looking at it. I mean, I was afraid to touch it. I was like, well, I mean, I had no knowledge, with this injury, and to turn you or anything. Was it going to dislocate again? It was,
and I had no idea
right,
either.
And you were still on morphine,
Yeah.
and then there was the question, it was like, oh God, the bathroom.
Oh my God.
Which your brother,
My
showed
brother
up
came
with.
from Vegas.
Yes, with the commode and the chair and everything. So that was.
And Mike was there too that first
yes,
night.
and so we got it, but this future tripping of, oh God, am I going to do something wrong? Well, you just no. The answer is going to reveal itself. And then 2 days we had somebody on the phone who was able to let me know what every 3 hours there has to be an ice pack on your leg. So that's where the round the clock thing started.
Shout out to Angie.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I remember talking with her and being so relieved.
My parents' friend down in Orange County.
Yes, and also having this, having this sense that, I mean, good God, that's I think it was around that time when it was like, all right, I need to deeply meditate and up my practice on that. And, there was plenty of time for that. But just to become really settled with uncertainty, and to accept uncertainty, and the only way that happens is if you can be present, if you can exercise that awareness that, the greats that we started watching, Ram Dass and Eckhart Tolle and Mooji and Sadhguru and all these others, and then, we got into the Bible and much later than the Hindu texts. And it was such a life lesson of letting go of, am I doing it right? And accepting that, yes, I'm going to make some mistakes. You're not going to learn how to, I think, in anything, it's like acting or being a leader in anything or helping somebody, unless you're willing to be wrong, if you're willing to be a beginner in that process. I think that in that time, that was the gift, I think, that one of many, but that I got from that. And I had confidence, times with my dad and everything. I think that was probably early on. That's what I realized. I was like, it's okay to be a beginner. It's okay to not know what I'm doing. And there's help. And then gradually the resources started coming in. But that was a couple days later after you were here. There was a few where I was just like, I would take the brace to get the ice inside. We didn't even have the gel packs yet. It was just like, and you went, and I was like, oh God. Did I break it?
Because the morphine, the first night I got here, I slept pretty good.
Yes.
And I was thinking even, okay, yeah, all right, I'm going to be laid up for a little bit. But then when that morphine wore off, and then that was... that was bad. And I remember you had told me, like, hey, don't be afraid to wake me up.
Right.
And of course, like, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to wake up.
Yes.
But then...
Well, the bedroom's just right over there.
Right there.
So, I mean, it didn't take much.
That first time I was, Eric... what was the 3 a.m. breakfast again?
Yes, 2 eggs and 1 or 2 pieces of toast.
Might have been...
It was probably, I think it was one. It was one piece.
Yeah.
One piece.
Because that's how it would take the pain medication.
Yes, yeah, a little bit of olive oil in the pan and 2 eggs sunny side up. A little Italian seasoning over the top. And I would have a time because I would see it was like, time for the meds and we got to get food in them, And I got it so that I could put the piece of toast in the toaster, push that down, and the eggs were ready right when the toast came up. I was like, oh yeah.
And then Space Odyssey 2001. That would usually be
that'd be the thing to fall asleep to.
To fall asleep to. That was about the first month. That was
sure. I'd be in the middle of the night, and also then I remember it becoming kind of surreal because since this was occurring about every 3 hours, day and night, really kind of losing track of the days, and even what hour of the day it was, for a bit, and then your brother came up, was able to get away from work and for Christmas, and then went home for a week, and came back, and trying all different things to help to relieve the pain, pressure points and stuff like that. And then doing the physical, once I was told how, they told us how to work the leg and work the foot, so to keep the nerve alive, bending your foot, for, I don't know how,
right.
how often did we have to do that?
Gosh, I completely forget.
Yes.
You're exactly right. You would, oh my God, man.
We'd have to put pressure on it and keep moving it,
Keep moving it.
Right.
You would massage it. You would move it to keep that brain to nerve connection going.
To keep it alive, I guess. Again. Yeah, even though, because it was crushed, right? The nerve. Yeah,
the nerve was completely shot. God, I forgot. This is crazy. It's all pouring back to me right now. And shout out to my brother. I love you. And he did.
Yes.
My
God. Thank God for him.
To give people not to give too much information, but you were emptying my urine bottles. That's how I pissed for like a long, long time, because during my surgeries.
Yes.
I remember Matt was not as diligent as emptying them as you were, and there was one time
that was from my dad. That I got that experience. What I was talking about. Yes, and all the bathroom stuff I had done with Dad. So I was like, all right.
He even spilled some on himself in the back, and I hear, I just don't see how Eric can do this.
I didn't spill. I had experience. So
just the ultimate. I think you had told me.
Don't wait till they're full. You wait. You empty them when I'm like halfway.
But it's just like that was one of the main times and the biggest time in my life where it's like I need help and I have to take it. And you were just so willing and such a phenomenal attitude throughout the entire experience. Like you never complained about anything, not once, ever.
Yeah.
And just
it was.
And we say that we were prepared to teach each other. What you did for me, completely, aside from my injury itself, completely changed me in a way where I know, or even if it's something little, I recognize. Oh, I'm meant to help this person right now.
Yeah.
Without thinking about it, it's not this. No, like God and it puts you in positions.
Right. Yeah.
This is your duty now. This is your role. And like you would always say, only do what's needed. I remember you just always would say that.
We got that. That was one of the videos that we watched the first time. Yeah. And of course I had learned that principle before, but I think it was we were watching tons of YouTube.
Yeah, we watched a lot of.
And this guy named Saad
and all the Justice League.
Yes.
And Marvel movies.
Oh, the Marvel movies.
And Oscar-winning awards.
Yes. But we did the 70s films and the 80s films. Well, that clip that Sadhguru was talking about was if someone is needing help at whatever level, you're only going to you can only do what's needed. Well, then the question becomes, well, what is needed? Well, you won't find out unless you're willing to give it a shot and understand that you're going to be wrong. And you're going to sometimes miss something or you'll overdo it. And it immediately comes up to your ego because it's like, I should be able to do this. Or then, if I'm doing too much and it's smothering, it's like, no, you're like, oh God, it's, you don't learn these things except by making mistakes. And it's okay to make the mistakes. But you get better at it because eventually you kind of get out of your head and into your heart. And by meditating and praying, and reading spiritual books and being of service, your intuition begins to awaken. Mm-hmm. And intuitively, I began to learn what was needed and not to do more. And that video, I remember Sadhguru was saying, if you do more than what is needed, you're actually doing harm to the other person. It's not about a dependency or an independence. That can be. But there's something that you need to learn, and maybe it's just learning to say, that's enough, I'm good. It's usually something bigger than that, especially with adults. But there's a karma that you're fulfilling, and the person that's helping is their karma to fulfill is to help it just to this point, and no more. If not, it can send you off in the cycle, the person that you're helping, into it can interrupt whatever it is they're needing to learn on their own, and that sounds pretty basic, but when you're getting down to a physical injury, or, even just, I've had friends who, are struggling to get sober, and those can really, I'm sober 16 years, we can talk about that some if you want, but it can be very difficult to say no with somebody who is suffering from something that is so at home and something that you've gone through yourself. You go through something rough, a rough patch in life, you come out on the other side and you've dodged all the bullets. You're like, oh, thank God. You're so grateful. You're going to help everybody. You're going to go and convert the world. And it's like, no, you can't. That's not just so far. When wait until somebody asks for help and then give just the help that's needed and send them on their way. It's pretty much the way to go.
And that's really what you did.
Yeah.
For me. Even from, and I want to get into your backstory and everything like that here in a second. But yeah,
this is more interesting.
Well, and I realize this could be a 4 hour. We could talk for 10 hours on this. But really even you recognizing when I'll never forget. And look, I went through my own emotional stuff.
Right. Yeah.
During this and trying to hold it together and. It was what I really learned from you too is when you would recognize when I was craving that independence again.
Right. Yes.
And you were able to, give me that without trying to smother me or trying to
make a big deal out of it.
Out of it. You let me do these little things.
Yeah.
Like even, we used to walk the block. I'd have the cane or the crutches depending if it was surgery time.
Yeah.
And even. Man, just those 15-minute walks, and then finally, it'd be at a point like, okay, I think I can do one by myself now.
Right. Yeah.
I'm just going to go to the end of the driveway.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go to the end of the driveway. You'd be like, okay, let me know if you need anything, and then finally, building. You gave me rides everywhere, to physical therapy, all my appointments, and I remember going to the store. Plus, it being high peak COVID, and me not getting to do much anyway. Going to Trader Joe's with you was one of the best things ever. Because that was my thing of the day.
Right. Yeah. Trader Joe's and Netflix. That was
Trader Joe's
thank God
and Netflix and reading every spiritual book on the planet. And then when that opportunity came, when the apartment next door opened up
miraculously,
because I had to get rid of my old apartment.
Right. Yes. Let's talk about that. That was
a very universal moment because I remember going to my appointment and the neighbors were like, "Oh yeah, by the way, we're moving," and "Oh, you are right."
Right, but no. Before that, when we moved you in here, and Nick Osborne and Franklin, shout out to him.
Shout out to both those guys.
And. We had to empty your apartment and also the storage unit. And it was also because, things were still in lockdown and the economy being what it was, I had no idea what, what the future was going to hold for me and for you as well. So it made sense to scale down the expenses, when you were still needing assistance. So you gave up your place. And I remember going there to your apartment that first day, and you only had so much juice in the battery before the pain was going to we maybe had an hour, and it was another example of just okay, this is we're going to draw this out over the course of a month. We'll just come here a couple days a week and pack up until you can't take it anymore, and then we'll go home, and it was little things like that where the intuition, I think, on both of us that was kind of being developed in, the spiritual path that we were on. It was that's all right. It's enough. Okay. We just did the closet today. And then when we went to the storage unit, and saw how cramped that was and the condition of your leg was, it was a huge kind of leap of faith in you, in Nick and Franklin and I, to just give us the key to your storage unit and load up the truck and bring it all back here so that you didn't have to stand there. And I remember that was a challenge for you. Do you want to talk about that?
I'm someone who has OCD and wants to control every situation.
Yeah.
And I'm also a pack rat. I want to keep everything.
Right. Yes.
So to finally just surrender. I think, and realize and just like, look, these guys are going to get it done.
Yeah.
You need to get it done.
Right.
Just let them do it. They're offering you this help.
Yeah.
Take it.
And we got it done fast, with those two guys.
I was amazed. It took you one trip.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, aren't you guys going? Like, no, we got it. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be like a 3-day thing. If I would have done it, it would have been.
If you had been there. Well, that was the thing, because it was like, there was stuff in there that you clearly didn't need.
Well, most of it I didn't
need, where that unit was located in the corners room, it was so cramped. It was like, you'll get overwhelmed. I was overwhelmed, and I didn't have an injury, or OCD, so it was like, okay, no, let's just get it all back to we put it in the garage, and then, gradually we were pulling things out. But that was...
And we were officially neighbors.
Now we're officially neighbors, yeah. And then the apartment next door it was after your second surgery. I think we were coming home from that.
Yep.
And
it was right before.
And Kelly came over and she said, we're moving in a month. Wanted to give you the heads up in case you guys are looking to, have the other unit. And got on the phone with Carlos immediately. Said yes, and here's the deposit, and and there it is. So
wow, well, my friend. I mean, again, I will continuously, publicly thank you for what you've done, and I mean, it's just
you're welcome.
Yeah, There's when you look at your life and you look at pivotal moments in your life, I mean, if it wasn't for you, I mean, the only other option was my parents were going to have to spend 10 to 12 grand on medical transport to take me back to Illinois. Yeah. And if I go back to Illinois, I probably don't ever find a surgeon such as the one I found in Los Angeles that was able to, shout out to Dr. Mitchell Soria, who did my nerve surgery where my foot moves and works again. Yeah.
Multiple variables.
And who knows if I ever make it back out to the West Coast, where I love to be. So you're an angel, man.
Well, yeah, it was, thank you.
Yeah.
It's odd hearing that. That incredible movie and play, Angels in America, I think maybe touches on a little of the phenomenon that was happening. I think human beings, we've got a good and bad side to us. And in that movie, I've watched it half a dozen times, read the play several times, done scene work from it.
We watched it.
Yes. In fact, that was one of the ones that we did. Yeah, with
Meryl Streep, right?
And Al Pacino, who originated the role, Troy Cohn, and phenomenal movie. But how human beings don't realize that they are actually serving as angels for each other, and people who normally wouldn't mix, particularly when that happens. Would you and I ever cross paths if we both didn't have a love for acting? What was it that started that? Our lives being vastly different states, and what that intersection happens, and I guess why for myself with, I hear the gratitude and I realized that I was doing, I don't want to have any false modesty over it, but there's no need to. I guess the suffering that you can go through as an artist or as a recovering alcoholic, my very religious upbringing, which I'm very grateful for, it just feels right when you're doing the right thing, I guess, versus resisting that. When you're living just for yourself, it can get very dark very quickly, when you are consumed with your self-pity or self-animosity. And the easiest ways I've learned, and this isn't just a recovery thing. This was long ago when I was a teenager, and I had the opportunity to go on a missionary trip, 16 years old. And getting your eyes off of yourself and observing and listening and interacting with people that are vastly different than you, an entirely different culture, and doing nothing but help build, put up a building, for them, with no agenda, not trying to convert or anything. It was an organization called Teen Missions that I went on. that brings such relief to whatever inner turmoil you can be having. And as teenagers, there's a lot of inner turmoil. I mean, what teenager doesn't have it? You know? But to get your eyes off of yourself, is and as I learned earlier, which now getting back to the spiritual books and Ram Dass and everything, is that, this say, I got to take care of myself. Who is saying that? Well, that's the ego. The ego says, I need to take time for myself. Well, the true self that's in the, described in the Upanishads, even the Gospels, maybe I'll use the word self, but maybe the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, whatever, that's down there, the Atman, the soul, that's complete. That doesn't need taking care of. That's already done. That's infinite. That's eternity. It's like shift. All that needs to happen is have this paradigm shift from Eric and Eric's mind, personality, the identity of Eric, to the source deeper that is aware that Eric exists. And once I'm there, then it's just like, in the Ram Dass book, he talks about, chopping wood and carrying water or gathering water, chopping wood, gathering water. And Muji, I remember one of the videos that we saw when he was saying, you do this chopping of the wood until you realize, there is no chopper. There's just chopping. Yeah. I remember when we saw that, mind-blowing experience. I'm just, so, there's Eric and his head trip or his personality or how good he's feeling for being a helper, and no, that's not what's going on. All that's happening is massaging the foot. All that's happening is putting the ice, figuring out, okay, if I pause, get rid of the anxiety, open up the brace, the ice goes here. All right. No, I'm not hurting anything. I can, put that back. It was like, so that was the gift, I'm watching Jesus of Nazareth,
which we're still watching.
Yes, we're watching over and over again. And
such a great series.
Oh, absolutely. And Robert Powell cast a Brit to play Middle Eastern, and that was back in the 70s, of course. But Michael York, I think, is probably my favorite.
He plays John the Baptist.
Favorite John the Baptist of any film that I've seen that is a biblical content. It's just,
Laurence Olivier's in there.
Yes.
Bilbo Baggins. What's his?
Ian Home. Yeah, that was some greats. And the guy who Anthony Quinn, who Zorba the Great. He.
That was a movie.
Zorba the Great was a movie. Yeah, made after the book. That was written by the same guy
I haven't read the book
yet. Yeah, same author as Last Temptation of Christ.
Which is
with Defoe's. Yeah. Well, anyway, so we saw all of these, and I remember us. But all this thing about like, well, Eric, you're helping so much, you're an angel and stuff like that. It honestly felt more like seeing and experiencing Christ inside of you was so coming alive. Your experience. I mean, how else could someone transcend that amount of pain? Because you were not wanting to do the painkillers after. I mean, you had them like the first week.
After they had after about the month mark, I quit with those.
Yeah, and even then, you were so cautious of overdoing it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was up to the hour. You weren't taking in, and it was just Tylenol, I think, wasn't it?
Then eventually, not that anymore.
Yeah. But and watching you with no certainty of what was going to happen to your leg, at all, and the anxiety and everything that was in you, and seeing that overcome. I mean, what other evidence that there's a thing called God than seeing a person having a spiritual experience right in front of you in your own living room? And that's what was like, this is Christ, and I'm John the Baptist here. I'm just I'm the one who's still spinning out in his head, What's Playhouse West going to open up again?
Shout out to Playhouse West, where we
met. Where we all met. Yes,
right down there on Lancashire there. And just the whole staying present thing, which ironically, coincidentally, they teach us at Playhouse West
with repetition.
Yeah, it became more prevalent than ever. And of course, we reread The Power of Now.
All right.
The book of the episode could be like 20 different books.
Right.
For us. So it's going to be Ram Dass Be Here Now. But
and meditations.
Marcus Aurelius Meditations and the Bhagavad Gita and the Myth of Sisyphus.
Myth of Sisyphus. That was
it's
a
like
tough
as soon
one.
as we'd see like, someone said this is a good spiritual book.
Yes,
let's order 2 off Amazon right now.
Yes. And DeMello's book.
Awareness. Anthony DeMello.
Oh, wow.
And it's just the list goes on. And I remember the days because you were doing like your online acting classes. And
oh my gosh!
You do those in the other room. I could hear Wolf in the other room. And
and then you sat through. I was practicing violin. There was something I was doing on the violin, and I was like, God, I've got, because it never sounds good when you start any new piece or scale system or anything. It's just, but you were fine with it.
Yeah,
it was a very close living.
And I do my physical therapy exercise right here on the floor. Even the smallest ones I started with in the beginning, and we had our routine, man. And like there's seriously days where I kind of miss it. I don't miss the leg pain, but we'd get up, we'd meditate, we'd eat breakfast, we'd watch something, something inspirational. And then there's some days, hey, do you want to watch a movie? Yeah, why not?
Yes, absolutely.
What else do we got to do?
Then take a walk around the block and go to the store probably, or go to therapy.
And I was working from home, and that was nice and very nice of the company I worked for to let me do that. And then, but then when that sun went down, when it was wintertime and it was like...
go down early. It's like...
I remember you'd shut the blinds here. Like, what are we cooking for dinner? Yeah. And you'd start cooking. Right. You'd have the classical music going.
Oh, that's right. You got turned on the Bach. I remember.
You turned me on to so many classical music pieces. And we would sit, we'd watch real high quality movies or Justice League. Or Batman, the 60s.
Yes, yes. Oh, yeah. I could sit through maybe 15 minutes of one episode.
Yeah. Shout out to HBO Max.
Right, absolutely. And Queen's Gambit and Hacks. Remember when that came out? We just ate
Hacks,
that up. And
Succession.
Oh, gosh.
We watched everything.
New season's coming out. Mara of Easton.
Mayor of Easton Town, or whatever it was.
Yes, that was fantastic. I love that.
But it's like, it was really an education, film and acting education. Even though I wasn't doing any film or acting, I got to absorb all that. And shout out to Orhun. I remember he called and told me, he's like, I've always wanted to have the opportunity, not like being hurt, but just to sit and read like 50 books in a year.
Right.
And that's really what I got to do.
Yes.
And, then we'd wrap the night with like meditation and do it all over again the next day. And it was just like, we call it the arc, right? This is the arc.
Yes, from the flood of disease and insanity outside.
And now that we're...
Black Lives Matter, the riots that were happening.
That was going on still. And then it was like, now that quote-unquote things are somewhat like they used to be, you're deep into the acting, you just congrats on the play you just put up with Ford and Wolf. I mean, that's incredible. Some men need help at Playhouse West. I'm back trying to get this going and, back in the workforce, out there in person. And there's days, though, where the chaos is crazy.
Right.
And I'm like, God, it was so simple back then on the arc. But that's when I remember, like you had told me the other day, is like, just stay present. No matter how crazy things are getting.
Yes. And that's easy.
What are you doing now?
And I think, with that and what we learned, in that grand pause, that so many people learned as well, but our experience here and taking care of your leg, like I was saying, if I can remember those moments when I'm fighting because the time management issue, working full time again, plus putting up a play and auditions, and it's very easy to, I think, as an actor, to get resentful at some responsibilities that just need to get done. Because we're so precious about our performances and our preparation and everything. And unfortunately, I've been at it long enough that I think I've learned it, but mostly it was reminded, and what we learned during those months was that it all does get done. And yes, in today's world, artists make their content. You have to, and I'm horrible. That's very difficult for me, with a couple other Playhouse people. In fact, Eric, who's Eric Sarich, shout out to him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Shout out to Eric Sarich.
He did sound for us.
He's taken this podcast to a completely different level.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We shot a Shakespeare scene about a month ago. And my anxiety level, it was a scene for our reel. It wasn't anything that we were trying to, get into distribution or anything. And I get so uncomfortable with that because it's like I kind of shrug off the responsibility of that. But if you're an artist, that's in today's world, that's needed. And so to let the ego go and accept that, okay, I'm a beginner at this, let's try the next one, just baby steps of doing that. And now, of course, the play and Ford, Fanter, and Wolf were all three producing this, and it is a very prop heavy play, and just gathering those and loading in late at night and having to clear out after a rehearsal, and because it's they've got classes in the theater during the day, so we. And understanding that, yes, it does get done. If you stay out of future tripping, you can do that. And then your survivor job. You need a job. You need some form of income so that you can make the art happen, and let art happen. Once I'm putting it into that context, then it's like, oh no, wait a second. I do have enough time. The key is to be very present so that your concentration is sharp. Your mind is clear. You're not attached to all these other things that have maybe gone on in the day, even just an hour ago. And suddenly your lines get memorized. Suddenly you're understanding the character. You're understanding the text a little bit better. And I'm not needing, I got to take a whole day. I don't have a whole day. So little bits. Now we're getting into acting. So
and you know what? I just we're going to have to do part 2 because I want to go from beginning to end of your acting thing. That'll probably take... When I watch you on stage and even like getting to jump in, I got to jump into Playhouse West this last month and do a scene together.
We did a showcase just this morning of a scene.
From the scene from The Father.
From The Father, yes. It was awesome. That was fun.
That was fun.
Yes.
That was fun. And it's just so fun to watch you act, man.
Oh, thanks.
When I watch you, I'm just like, this guy was born to be an actor. That is, you have multiple gifts. You play violin, you're an amazing person, but when you're on that stage, you're I wanted to come back, but when I came to watch you do the scene from Death of a Salesman,
yeah,
and just seeing how you just owned
Willie Nolman,
and that scene, I'm like, oh, I gotta come back. This is
got you back in. That's good. All right,
back in. So we got about 10 more minutes here.
Oh, okay.
Man, acting for you, why do you act?
I think now I've been doing it for a while. First play, I was 12 years old. That was something besides a Christmas play, as a child. I think you had actually given this quote to me it was in the Myth of Sisyphus, wasn't it? About actors. Do you recall?
Just the other day. Yeah, I read it. Yeah, they basically have the opportunity to live out hundreds of lives.
Yeah, and I think that's, I think with acting, that's what so intrigues me. In Grayson's, and all three of them, just recently saw Charlie's, Nick's, and Grayson's podcast. I've seen others. I've seen parts of Ford's and such. But the thing with acting is, would you balance out, you got to live or just act? And after a while, and if you've been at it for a while, I don't need much anymore to fill my soul. And I think that's acting and my spiritual life are kind of the same thing now. I don't want to sound too esoteric or, too like I'm holier than thou, because when I'm speaking spiritual, I'm not meaning religious. I'm not meaning morality. I'm meaning, being connected. And so and that's what acting is. So, if I'm standing at my job, I carry suitcases. I'm a bellman. I've been doing that for years. and I can. It's one thing to observe people. I'm watching people to help my acting, and there's another that you connect to people and you feel them. You have this empathy, and then if you're seeing them go through something or something unexpected happens, and watching that, it's not that I'm mapping their behavior as an actor. I'm letting it impact me, and then that comes together. Sooner or later, there's a character or something that, oh, wait a second, I'm familiar with this scenario. I'm familiar with this emotion. So acting and living pretty much are kind of the same for me. They're so entwined now. And I guess in order to get the job done as an actor, I have to be spiritually present. I have to be spiritually fit. I have to be emotionally available. And so all of these things improve my life. Acting actually improves my life. It doesn't take away from it. And also brings about the most amount of service and the most amount of self-acceptance. It's been many times, the character that we're working on now with Some Men Need Help, and playing somebody that was just vastly different than I am. And finding that part of my humanity in the character, and starting there, and then suddenly this guy is stepping forward, and all of a sudden I got this accent from somewhere on the East Coast, who knows? But life is, I guess, because of the restraints that having this much busyness goes on, and. When are you going to go out? And yes, I've seen plenty of museums. I've traveled plenty. I've lived a very interesting life. When you're younger, maybe you've got to take time to do that. But then as you get older, you're like, no, wait a second. It's time to settle and be very, very detailed in your preparation and detailed in forming to give yourself the experience. But this is where the service comes in. To be of service to your partner on stage, to be of service to the writing, to the director, and get your ego out of the way, get out of your head and into your heart. Your heart will speak, and when you're in that framework, when you've made that paradigm shift, and like the Meisner method at Playhouse West, they start out with repetition. It's all about you. Mm-hmm. What are you saying to me? How's it pinching me? What can I express what this is, or am I bottling it up? So that's a very long answer.
No, you know what, man?
I am an actor. There's nothing now at this point. There's just nothing else to do. I guess nothing else fulfills me. I so love acting. I love it. I love music. But music is to fill my soul. Acting is what I love to do. Acting is my profession. That's what I'm.
When I say this with all due respect, like one thing, I've told this story to several people, younger artists too.
Yeah.
You know who you are.
Yes.
You know that you are an actor.
Yes.
And you have moved your life around that.
Right. And it becomes easy. It becomes easy. Once you realize that, oh, okay, I'm going to need a survivor job. Yeah. If you accept that, it's not a problem.
Right.
If you accept that you're an actor and okay, then socially maybe nobody likes to mix with us too much except other actors. Okay, dating relationships, you get very, very. Nick had said that in his podcast. They can be very, very challenging. But if once you make the decision and realize and accept that that's what this means, and that chances are I'm always going to have a secondary kind of income to have these experiences, it's not a problem. It's those who are still toying with the idea, and I did for a long time, that becomes, an anxiety, and it crushes you, and then your roles aren't good, your auditions aren't good. You've got too much going on up here about what this all means, so.
Well, we gotta do part two.
We'll do part two.
We gotta do part two because there's a lot more things we want to talk about, but we only have so much time.
Here, are we down to seconds?
Yes. No, we're not down to seconds, but
open this randomly.
Before we do that, Where can people find you at on social media?
Eric Charles Jorgenson. It's on Instagram and Facebook, and that's probably good enough.
Okay.
Am I supposed to spit my phone number out? Or
Yeah,
no?
give your phone number
No.
too.
They can
Also,
find me there.
Shout out to Eric Sarich.
Oh, yes.
Right there.
Absolutely.
He's honestly, and what's crazy is, really, really quick, you were dropping something off for him.
Their wheelchair.
And you're like, he wasn't home. You're like, hey man, are you home? Like, yeah, come on by. And you come by and you're like, oh yeah, you're doing the podcast. And you're like, yeah, I can shoot those. I'm like, you can, because if you follow the podcast, like I've had technical difficulties because I'm just
Yes.
I guess in over my head would be the right word. But they're
Yes.
just trying to do too much. And this is amazing. I look forward to continuing this process.
So while you're randomly finding a page,
Okay.
I
Want
do
me
want
to pick it?
Yeah. I want to give a shout out to my work that I've mentioned. I work at the Mondrian Hotel. I've been there for years, and this hotel and this current management. There's several managers there. Brought us out of the pandemic because the hotel had closed down for, I think they were closed for like 6 months, and then they called me out of the blue August of 2021 and offered the job back. And man, they work hard. And they are so, they've allowed Ford and I to go off and do this play and worked with our schedules and everything. And it's a wonderful place to work. All the front desk, our salespeople are working overtime. The hospitality industry got so hit by the pandemic, and to crawl out of that, and to we got a new restaurant that's opening. Will be open by the time this is probably done. But man, that's I won't go and list all the names. Just thank you, everyone at Mondrian Hotel, because I really enjoy working there now.
Well, it's a blessing when you can find something that can sustain you,
Right.
and you can pursue your art at the same time.
Right.
You can
Yes.
do both.
Absolutely.
You can
Well,
do
and you
both.
have to. I mean, it's and there's times when you are getting, your income is just with your art. There are those senses. That's happened to me, But if you're in this game long enough, there'll be many times when you need, maybe you're a producer now or a writer or something. You're not just performing. So anyway, what's the random page?
Randomly open this. Oh, this is interesting. Where he saw me, he looked at me, and he saw that place in me which is love. And here we are, in love. That's the world he lives in. And once I appreciated that, and I could see that he could look at this corrupt, impure, ugly being, and he could love it that much that nobody had ever done that before. Everybody had said, I'll love you if. And he just said, where you really are and where I really am, we are love. And when I was around him, I was in love.
Wow.
Oof.
That's what we should have been talking about. That's like part 3.
Part 3 will be up here.
And I saw Jordan Peterson, a clip on Instagram talking about love and the reality of what love is and the reality of feeling love, unconditional love. I think that's maybe some of what we experienced.
I was just going to say that's a great way to. That's what you and I experienced, and
and not being. Knowing how much to give, knowing that you already have all the love that you need, you don't have to love me back. Can I love without feeling loved back? Those are all very. I think that's kind of what I'm here to learn. And I don't want to speak for others, but maybe that's what the journey of the soul is coming to that recognition. Like, oh, wait a second, I've got all this love here. I'm all right. People come into your life, they live your life. You're married or divorced or you're single, whatever. Different people come in and hang out for a while, and times change, people move away or a parent passes, but yeah, that's very, very powerful. And seeing that love and the potential, everyone I think has that in, well, everybody does. So,
well, my friend, I love you.
Oh, love you too, man. We did it.
We did it. The first one.
Yes,
we're going to be doing multiple one of these in the future, but thank you.
That went by fast. Maybe not for the viewers, but
it did. Well, thank you so much. Everyone, check him out, Eric Charles Jorgenson.
No, thanks.
And we'll have to do this again, my friend.
Absolutely.
It's been a ride, and the ride's going to keep going. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Sam Dever podcast. Be sure to follow us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you watch the podcast, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@the Sam Dever podcast.